we're both from Phoenix, Arizona, which is just a state away. And I had gotten saved out of Buddhism, shamanism, and Eastern mysticism kind of stuff that I was doing for 2 years. God radically saved me and appointed me to go and share with all kinds of people. So I had started to do that. I was sharing at coffee shops and skate parks. I skateboard, so that's kind of like the ministry that God's appointed me to. The whole world's ministry, but skateboarding is a special place that my heart is just really attracted to. I think like all those kids really need it. It's a dark community, and God's shining light on it. So I was out in Arizona. I was preaching the gospel a lot, and God started to save people through me a lot. And I didn't know what discipleship meant. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I didn't grow up and knowing what discipleship was or what anything in the Bible was. I found out for my own, like the first year that I had been saved, I'd just been reading like crazy, spending hours a day in the Word. And so I started to learn more about what preaching the gospel meant, more about what making disciples meant, but I didn't see an example, really. I thought discipleship was handing the Bible to people after they're saved and saying, hey, read the book of John, come to my church if you want. So God had been saving a handful of people, about 10 people in the first 10 months that I had been saved. And I'd just been sharing and sharing. And then one day I had ended up meeting some people, came out here for just a week. And while I was out here, God told me to come out here and live in my van and preach the gospel. And so I said, okay, Lord, I'll do it. I had led Sydney to the Lord prior to this. When I first met Sydney, she was an atheist, and she was the first person I ever baptized. So I had known Sydney before I went out to California. We hadn't really been dating or anything at the time. So I moved out to California on my own. And that was in December. It was Christmas Day that I moved out here. And New Year's Eve today, right when it turned 12, I was desperately on my knees praying for community. I had been like, Lord, I came out here and I know 2 people. I know 2 people out here that love you and that want to pursue you, but I don't know people that have the Great Commission mindset and have this purpose to go and share what you've done in their lives and what you can do in others' lives. So I've been praying for community. And the next day I go to the skate park and I'm sharing. And I had this shirt that on the back of it, I painted with a paintbrush, Galatians 2:20. And the first I had a cross on the front, I had, it is finished. And I was skating, sharing the gospel with people. And I was skating, and then Troy was there with his kids.
So all of a sudden at the skate park, you saw this old guy.
Yeah, sitting down. He wasn't even
What's he doing here?
Yeah, so I just saw him, and didn't really think anything. My dad, I grew up skating with my dad. So I was like, I grew up skating with older dudes, but he wasn't skating. He just kind of
sitting there,
just watching his kids. And I didn't
skate dad.
Skate dad.
It's like a soccer mom, but it's a skate dad.
It's the same occupation.
Yeah.
So I was there, and then he turns to me and he goes, I like your shirt. That's very true. And I thought he was mocking me because I had a lot of people at the time reviling me and mocking me for for loving Jesus in the skate community. So I started to give him my testimony in the gospel, trying to lead him to the Lord. And then he goes, oh, I'm a missionary. I plant house churches. And I was super encouraged. I was like, wow, no way. That is awesome. And it was the first time that I had somebody go, hey, let's meet up tomorrow. I want to hear more about you. It was more than just like the surface level of like, let's hang out. It was like, tomorrow night, we're going to get coffee. I'm bringing my disciples. And that's exactly what he said. And that's what he did. So the next day we go to get coffee. It was Jordan was there. And so was Mason. Yeah. And we were getting coffee. I was so encouraged by them. Everyone in that coffee shop ended up being like believers. We ended up talking to a bunch of people. I was just going off, and we met some people from house church. I hadn't known a house church yet. I had grown up like when I got saved, I was going to the traditional church. It was awesome. God was moving. It was more like pastor on the pulpit. And like, I didn't really see anything like a house church before. I'd heard of it. I had really been intrigued, but I never saw an example. So then that night, he's like, hey, after coffee, he's like, let's go to can you want to go to my house? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. You know, he said, want to meet my family? I said, yeah, I'd love to. You know, I don't know people out here. And so keep in mind the night before I'm praying for community. And then he
Yeah.
opens the door. We go to his house. He opens his door and I look into his house and there's a bunch of young guys that look like me.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. You know, and I walk up to them and they love Jesus. They skate and they surf. And so I was already like so encouraged that God, I knew that was an answer to prayer. So after that, I had found like what we call it like mobbing. Like I found my crew to mob with.
Mm.
The next day or two, I was like Malachi, it was just his son. I mean, I'm sure you know, I was like, I want to go to Oceanside Skate Park. And so and before that, I experienced house church for the first time. And it like
Came to movement. Went to Zeal.
yeah,
Mhm.
moved me. It like I saw something that I had never seen before, you know?
Mm.
I've seen God moving in a way that I hadn't seen in Arizona, my whole walk with Jesus. And it was so awesome. It's what I had been looking for and pursuing so passionately, but I never found it. And then I found it. And when I found that, it was just like an ignition
Mm.
just to go. And so we went to the skate park. And the first day we were at the skate park, I ended up sharing with this kid and his brother. And they ended up getting saved. And so we saw God doing work out there. The next day we go to disciple them. And as we're discipling them, I look up and all of Troy and all of our buddies are witnessing to all kinds of people in the skate park.
Yeah.
They're coming out. There's dudes with beers in their hands, talking to people about Jesus. And I'm like freaking out. So we realized God was doing something. And so I stayed there. I stayed in California for a month, and God faithfully saved 8 people in a month. And we saw God moving, not just out here, but like all over. And I had been so encouraged and so moved. Like I said, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. So my parents came out to visit me when I was out here. Because when like I just was like, God told me, he's like, to move back to Arizona. He was like, Max, go back to Arizona. And I was like, Lord, I want to be here for so long. Like, what do you want me back in Arizona for? You know? And it's like, but I know like he has it for a reason. And so my parents come out the weekend that I was going to go back to Arizona. And my mom tells my dad to ride with me back to Arizona. And on the way to Arizona, as I'm moving back, just for a little, I thought I was going to be there for like a week. On the way back, I end up leading my dad to surrender his life to Jesus in the passenger seat of my car. One of the most beautiful moments of my life. Like I've seen people come to stop, but the moment that I got to like cry and pray over my dad, you know, like it's just so huge. I've been praying for my family forever. So my dad gives his like fully surrenders his life to Jesus in the passenger seat of my car. And the next day, my twin sister gives her life to Jesus. And I had just been in this place where I was like, okay, God's doing work out here. And obviously he wants me out here for a little longer than I thought I would be out there. So then I was so encouraged. They taught me how to disciple. I didn't know how to disciple ever. And then the moment I came to California, they showed me 411. They showed me all this stuff. Within that month I was here, I ended up going to Montana and doing a training. And like, I was so lit up that I had it was like a new door that God had opened. Discipleship, right? Like I had seen the fruit of people being saved, but now I can walk with these people and I know how. I saw the example. So I was really excited to go back to Arizona too and to disciple the people that I had led to the Lord before I moved to California. So I come back and the first person I wanted to disciple was Sydney. And
Okay.
so
And there were no mixed motives then, Maximilian?
no, I actually did. I mean, I liked her. I always did like her, but I didn't think we were gonna get married as soon as we did, at least. So I went there and, you know, I liked her, but it was a thing where I was like, man, God, because I had a lot of people that I had led to the Lord out there, but Sydney was the one that really was burning. I mean, after she got saved, she would go to the homeless community and just like hand bagels and talk to them about Jesus. She had a Bible study with a group of homeless people when she first got saved. Like I had seen so much fruit. And so I was like, man, like God's moving through this girl. And I'd love to see her learn the things that I learned in California, how much she'd grow even more. So I go back and then I end up planning a house church. And I was staying there. So I started to like her. And then I started to see God started to save people. And I was like, okay, Lord, you want me out here for longer than a week. So I started seeing God move, and I was like, I think I'm gonna start a house church. I had so many friends. Like I had dudes that I used to party with that came to faith. And the first day of house church, I got to baptize my friend Wyatt, and it was awesome. Such a good time. The choke baptism. It was so awesome. And so I planted a house church. We called it the Laborers, and we had a community immediately. Like the first day, we had a community of people that were so zealous to make disciples, but they didn't know how. The same as I was, so zealous to go and be laborers, but they didn't know where to start. And Laborers Church was just a foundation for these people. And so we saw people come to, I mean, this whole, but we didn't even start dating. I actually just ended up asking her to marry me. I was like, Cindy, Lord was really putting on my heart, and I seeked wisdom, and I seeked accountability and everything. I mean, with Troy and other people, and every single person that was spirit led had really been pushing, like, hey, like it's a good thing. And everyone that wasn't spirit led was like, you're crazy. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like it started to kind of come together. So
it both could be true, Max.
Yeah, I am a crazy. I am crazy for the Lord. But
Sydney, what was going on for you around this time?
I'll just start a little from the beginning. So I used to be an atheist. My mom never believed in God, and I really looked up to her. So I just chose to follow his path, and I was very passionate about not believing in God. And then one day I met Max at the skate park, and he just started sharing the gospel with me. And it was the first time I've actually heard the gospel, and I didn't give my life to Jesus that day, but the seed was planted. And so it was about 4 months later, Max and I got reconnected, and he just kept pouring into me, telling me about Jesus. And then eventually he had given me a Bible, and me and Max kind of went our separate ways, and I had the Bible, and I just graduated high school. I didn't have a job, and so I really had nothing to do. And God had in this time just put a curiosity in me to read his word. And so I started reading. Obviously I didn't know God gave me the curiosity, but now when I look at it, he definitely did. And so I just started reading so much of the gospels, and everything I had ever heard about Christianity was I had always heard just very cliche things like a cloudy heaven, and just cupids and things like that just weren't true to me, and just seemed very fairy tale-ish. So when I started reading the Bible, his word, God just started revealing himself to me and showing just his truth to me. And I was so focused on people's opinionated beliefs, and when I started reading his word, he just started showing me his truth. And so after I had started reading, I found myself believing, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy, because I was always very resistant to just God in general. And so I remember I was like, wow, I believe in Jesus. And I reached out to Max one day, asking, just wanting to know more about baptism, and he was like, what? So excited. And he ended up baptizing me in Sedona. I got baptized Greek. It was so cool. And
Was she a chokehold baptism?
I think she.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
I don't think
Might
so.
have been collarbone.
Okay.
But my mom got to go, and she's an unbeliever. My best friend Riley got to go, and she's an unbeliever. So just them seeing that just real change in my life was really huge for them. And so about a couple months after I got baptized, Max went to California, and we always kept in contact. And we were always updating each other with just life. And so in the midst of us not talking or not seeing each other for 5 months, I was just reading a lot, just learning a lot, just getting that spiritual milk. And then after Max had gotten back from California, and he God just worked in him there, and worked on me while I was in Arizona, just teaching us both so much separately. When we came back together, I don't know, God just was showing us the path of marriage. And
Yeah, that's awesome.
it was pretty fast and exciting and kind of scary. But yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sydney.
She
Troy.
is a humongous blessing. Like,
Yes.
we got to go out there and do a training. I brought Malachi or Isaiah I'm sorry, Ez and Laz,
Oh yeah.
and we mobbed out there. We were there,
And that's it.
and Lucy.
At laborers.
Yeah, and we noticed just how complimentary Sydney was to Max, and just her kindness, and as like zealous as he is in evangelism, and then growing in discipleship and church planning, just very apostolic. Sydney also, she shares the gospel a lot, and I think she more naturally also like just pours into people. And so we saw a girl that they had led to faith at the skate park, and Sydney was walking with his twin sister, and so just seeing the gifting within their relationship, and now in their marriage, and now on our team, our apostolic band, she's such an answer to prayer.
So the two things I heard when you were sharing, Max, is you needed your tribe, not to be alone in this.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this alone. And then the other piece was I just need some basic tools.
Yeah.
So that, naturally I'm sharing the gospel, but how do I disciple people? How do we form churches? How do we help other people who don't naturally share the gospel?
It's exactly. Yeah. Like I had been doing it alone and I loved it. Like it was a thrill, and I found just a great thing in preaching the gospel. It was like my favorite thing to do. It still is, but in that time I had just been like, it was more of a need than a desire. I was like, man, I need community, like it was almost like I was burning myself out.
Yeah.
Like I was going out and preaching the gospel, and then I come back and like, I didn't have anybody to really pour into me, no one was really like, I had like 70-year-old elders from my church and stuff, and they're great. Like they're awesome. They love me.
There's nothing
so
wrong with being old, Max.
Hey, I know, but that's like, they're awesome. And,
Yeah.
and they really did pour into me. But I think it was like people that were doing the same thing that I was doing. It was like going out there and sharing. People who had that same vision. And no doubt, like my elders and stuff had the same, they still do, like have the same vision to reach the lost.
Yeah.
But I think it's just like, it was different, young people like my age that I can relate to and I can skate with. And then we can go and share the gospel. And so it was huge, and simple tools too.
So Troy, how do you see this fitting into what God's doing there in Southern California and around the States?
Yeah, a couple things. One, we were at the NPL Summit recently in Vegas, and had a phenomenal time with some people from across North America. And then we had Jeff led us through an E3 strategy gathering for North America afterwards. And a couple takeaways related to what your question you asked me. One was the importance of abiding together, and spending time together as an apostolic band, and even distinguishing a local established church with local elders from like a pioneering band, and just teasing that out of the scriptures. But to spend large quantities spend time together going through large quantities of scripture. And that was one thing. But the other thing was this whole concept. I can't remember if we mentioned it in the last interview. I picked it up from Max. I've heard other people around here that are way younger than me use this term. But when we went down to Oceanside, he was like, dude, we're mobbing down to Oceanside. And so I think that the idea of being together, and honestly seeing all 5 parts of the 4 fields taking place from like, I began to notice maybe 3 years ago that us being together, me, Rick, and Puck, and other people that are with JT, when we were out in public together at a coffee shop or a restaurant, we don't have an office, you know, so we're meeting out in public. Like, people noticed us and like would make a comment that we're different. Like, what are you guys? And we would, you know, pray for people. And if we kept going back to some of the same places, you know, we would engage people. And so I saw it as an entry strategy. But now I'm seeing all 5 parts happen. I see it. Entry, evangelism takes place. Some guys over here sharing the gospel. Discipleship's happening over here. We're doing this. You know, we're starting churches out there. There's leadership development and vision casting habits. It's all happening at the same time. Whether we're driving up to the valley to meet with Jan, or going into West LA to spend time with those folks, or we're just going to the pizza place down the street, you know, at Tide Pools in Newport, where we get to see the owner and his mom get baptized a few months ago. Jordan is actually a very skilled basketball player. He played Division I college at St. Mary's, and so he plays in the Venice Basketball League, which is like a street basketball league that's pretty well known out here. And he was the MVP of the tournament last year and hit the game-winning shot. So he has a good reputation in that community. And so we started going out there as a church, mobbing to the street ball, and it's Venice. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's not the cleanest.
It's dark.
Yeah, it's very dark. And so I think being out there and then gathering for worship afterwards, and we're meeting on blankets, we're meeting in parks, we're meeting in homes, we're meeting in coffee shops. Rise just met at a pizza place last night. Just mobbing in different places in public. We met at a park on Sunday and got to share the gospel, invite a number of people in. So the public space, the event with intent, as Guy Caskey says, we're seeing happen. But for a couple weeks, we were going to his game, and the guys were skating at the skate park. Ezen Laz and some of the others were skating, Malachi and them. And he's sharing the gospel, and Sydney's sharing the gospel, and Isaiah shared the gospel with a Mormon last week. Ezen Laz have started sharing the gospel, and they're picking it up. Like, they're just going up to people and sharing the gospel at 5 and 7 now. Yep. And so it's contagious. Yeah. But we realized, like, we were after the game, we were heading over to someone's house for church in West LA. I was like, you know what? Like, let's not pull Jordan away from his oikos. Like, these are people that are coming from all over the city. And so we decided to move church to a different day during a season. And we hung out there on Sunday a long time. He had a doubleheader. And after the game was over, we got to talk to so many people, including the CEO of the league, who gave a shout out to us in our church. And they call him like, oh, he's the deacon in his church. Oh, they nickname him all these like Christian nicknames. And we got to just encourage the CEO and his family, and he got to talk to the DJ, and I think Katie and Tori got to talk to the guys, because what they'll do is they'll like have live commentary, and these guys are like, they're hilarious. If you've ever been to a street basketball game, but so then like taking the church mobile into these spaces, and it's like the Lord is just giving us favor in these places, you know, like to get a shout out. I mean, this thing is like televised on the internet, and he like gave a shout out during the game, like not like we're promoting our church or anything. We're like, hey, what's the name of your church? He's like, all right, church movement, yeah. Like, and we're just like, what is happening right now? So crazy. Where, I mean, just this morning we met with, there was like 6 of us, and we went to a coffee shop. We're in the Word together. We're encouraging believers. If we encounter lost people, we're sharing the gospel. We cast vision to a guy from Vanguard. So yeah, I think that there are some practices coming out of the heart that are taking place. We're training together. You know, we've been up to Montana. We've gone to Denver together. We've been to Phoenix. We just all went to Utah and led a 4 Fields intensive there. And then going through the journeys and really seeing this whole concept of mobbing in there. I'm also really, it's like a snowball that people kind of get, you know, like they jump in and they get, you know, they learn, they get encouraged, or they get saved, or they get like activated, into the work. The other night, Jordan, there's a church out in Riverside that he helped start that he provides leadership to called Rivers. And I think we talked about it in the last interview. And they had 2 baptisms. They don't have a beach out there in Riverside in the IE. And no, not even a river, actually. And they baptized 2 people out there. So they came out to Huntington Beach. And so a group of us from Movement Church, from Zeal, from Rise, and from Rivers, obviously, we're out there. And we had food on the beach. We did the baptism. Max and Jordan are out inviting people. There's like a lot of people out there at the beach. And he's inviting them like, hey, we got a baptism, come on out, and they're sharing the gospel with people as we're like moving this herd of like 30 some people, including I think all of my kids except for Maya were there, and their friends. And so it was just like this herd of people, and they're just trying to gather people. Augie does the same thing at a baptism. He's constantly trying to pull people in. Yeah, a lot of similarities. And so we go out there, they share testimony. Jordan and then the girl's dad, they baptized these 2 people, and we prayed over them. And Sydney goes and shares the gospel with these teenagers that are there to watch the baptism. We go back and we're having food. They have a time of worship. Max and Malachi lead some worship, and we're the beach, like they shut it down at 10. It's 9 o'clock, and it's like you can tell it's kind of winding down, and we had a chance to talk to believers about just what the Lord has been doing in the area. So as you're sharing the gospel, you meet believers too, and they get, oh, what are you guys like? How do we do this? And Max like gets to the last song, and he's just like, Ephesians 4:11 and 12. Evangelists don't just share the gospel; they equip the saints. And he did that. My goodness, he just said, guys, like I think after this song, I think we just need to go share the gospel right now. And there are a lot of people there that. Not a lot. There were some people there that had never done like 0 to 1, like evangelism.
What's 0 to 1, Troy?
Just going up to somebody that you don't know and sharing the gospel with them.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think right now he just cast strong vision for the lostness that was there, and how could we not go and share? And God is with you, and you know what to say, and pair up with 2 or 3, and so we start going around to people are hanging out around their campfires, and I'm like, what's this going to look like? And Jordan goes over with these 2 like teenage or younger guys, and while Max is casting vision, and then by the time we go, there's this group of people like, I don't know, maybe 100 yards away or 50 yards away, and they're doing karaoke on the beach. I don't know how they pulled this off, but they're having the most fun time with this karaoke. And we go up there, and I'm like, how are we going to engage? And it's Jordan and this other guy are the ones singing in the karaoke. They infiltrated the karaoke party. And then this guy, what's the guy's name? Landon.
Yeah.
Landon just starts sharing his testimony, sharing the gospel. Max gets the microphone. He's preaching the gospel at the beach through the karaoke
like
machine.
30 people.
And just pleading with them to surrender their lives to Jesus.
Wow.
And there were some people obviously that were uncomfortable. There were people that were locked in. And there was one guy who's like, my cousin is dying of cancer. Will you please pray for me? So we got to come around, and there's some people from that group that emerged. They were like, oh yeah, man, this is awesome, And so they started praying, and then our group just got emboldened, and they start spreading out to other campfires, sharing the gospel. And then Max goes up to this group of people, and they had been praying. They brought a guitar. They didn't have anybody leave. They said, we were actually praying for somebody to come and lead worship for us. So he leads worship for these people. God's doing all these different things all at the same time.
So
we just showed up to the beach to baptize 2 people because we mobbed a network of churches that has this culture of evangelism, discipleship, church planning. It just was all happening at the same time.
Strengthen and encourage.
Wow.
Yeah.